The bus jolted to a sudden stop, and with a voice that cut through the silence, Elijah thundered, "I know your secret, and it's worth billions. Speak up now, or face the truth you've been hiding." What happened next shocked everyone and set off a chain of events no one saw coming. Stay with me. This is a story you need to hear. Before we start the story, comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from today. And if you find this story impactful, don't forget to subscribe for more. The morning air was cool and crisp as the city awoke, its streets shimmering with the remnants of an early rain. The bus, an aging yet steadfast vehicle with paint that had seen many seasons, rumbled steadily along its route. Inside, the worn vinyl seats bore silent witness to countless journeys, and the faint aroma of coffee and damp asphalt mingled with the hum of the engine. Outside, skyscrapers glinted in the soft light, while distant sounds of car horns and footsteps created a living, breathing symphony of urban life. Elijah, the bus driver, sat at the helm with a practiced grip on the steering wheel. His eyes, lined with the experiences of many long years on the road, darted between the rearview mirror and the busy street ahead. Every shift of the gear and every turn of the wheel was executed with a careful precision born of habit and necessity. There was a stubborn resolve in his gaze, yet beneath it lay layers of unspoken stories and hidden regrets. He had been a man of few words for as long as anyone could remember, his expressions often etched in the tight lines around his eyes. Today, however, there was a tension in the air, a silent anticipation that something unexpected might occur. At the bus stop, as the vehicle slowed to a gentle halt, a figure emerged from the bustling crowd. Aisha stepped onto the pavement with quiet confidence. Her presence was subtle yet undeniably captivating. Dressed in a simple but elegant coat and carrying a small, worn leather bag that hinted at a life lived with purpose, she moved with an assured grace. There was a mystery in her deep brown eyes, a story that was not yet told, a secret that weighed heavily on her. As she approached, the bus's interior seemed to hold its breath. Regular commuters glanced up, curiosity briefly lighting their features, but none more so than Elijah, who watched her with a mix of suspicion and intrigue. Aisha took a seat near the front, choosing a window that framed the unfolding cityscape. The interplay of light and shadow outside mirrored the subtle duality in her expression, calm on the surface, yet there was something intense beneath. As the bus pulled away from the stop, the rhythmic thud of tires on wet pavement provided a steady backdrop to the quiet murmur of passengers settling into their routines. The bus's interior was a tapestry of diverse lives. An elderly gentleman named Mr. Thompson sat across from Aisha, his lined face softening with a gentle smile as he recognized a kindred spirit in her quiet demeanor. He was a retired schoolteacher, known among regular riders for his thoughtful observations and occasional humorous remarks. Nearby, a young college student, Lila, tapped nervously on her phone, lost in a world of texts and social media updates, yet her eyes occasionally flickered towards the intriguing newcomer. The air was thick with unspoken connections and the potential for unfolding stories. As the journey continued, Elijah's focus remained on the road, but his mind wandered to the unusual calm that had descended upon the bus ever since Aisha's entrance. He remembered the countless faces he had seen over the years, faces etched with weariness, hope, and sometimes quiet defiance, but rarely had one stirred such a conflicted mix of feelings within him. His own life had been marked by hardship and loss, and his temper, often quick to flare, was a protective armor honed through years of disappointments. Yet today, something about Aisha's presence made him both cautious and inexplicably drawn to her. The city passed by in a blur of color and sound. Outside the window, neon signs flickered in early daylight, and street vendors began setting up their stalls. The scent of freshly baked bread and simmering spices wafted through the air, merging with the distant notes of a street musician playing a soulful tune on an old guitar. These sensory details created a vivid tapestry that wrapped around the passengers, each absorbed in their own reflections and memories. Aisha's thoughts, however, seemed distant. Every so often, her eyes would wander towards the city, as if seeking answers in its ever-changing face. There was a palpable air of determination about her, a silent promise to herself that the challenges of the day would be met with resilience. Her secret, hidden beneath layers of ordinary appearances, was something she guarded with her life. It wasn't merely about wealth or material success, it was a burden and a blessing, a truth that had the power to upend everything if it were ever revealed. For Elijah, the morning began to shift from routine to charged anticipation. His duty was to serve as the custodian of the bus's safe passage through the chaotic city, yet he could not shake off the feeling that today was different. He recalled a moment from his own past, a day when secrets, long buried under layers of silence, had suddenly exploded into light, leaving a trail of broken trust and bitter consequences. That memory, dark and persistent, now seemed to echo in the clatter of the bus's engine and in the fleeting glances exchanged between passengers. As the bus navigated a narrow street lined with graffiti and fading murals, a sudden jolt shook the vehicle. A bump in the road, innocuous to some, sent ripples of unease through the compartment. Elijah's knuckles whitened as he gripped the steering wheel tighter, his eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. In that brief moment of interruption, the glances of those on board converged, each face reflecting a shared moment of vulnerability. Mr. Thompson adjusted his cap with a knowing smile, while Lila's eyes widened in silent alarm. Aisha, however, remained composed, her expression unreadable, as if she had long accepted that life was filled with unexpected tremors. The bus then slowed near a busy intersection where the cacophony of city sounds crescendoed, a blend of car horns, distant sirens, and the chatter of pedestrians crossing the street. At this juncture, Elijah's thoughts turned inward. He remembered his own youth, when dreams had been bold and untainted by the harsh realities of the world. There was a time when he had believed in the possibility of change, of redemption through small acts of kindness. But those days had faded, replaced by a hardened resolve and a tendency to lash out at any perceived threat. Today, as his gaze met Aisha's calm stare in the rearview mirror, he felt an unsettling mix of defiance and curiosity. Was it the quiet strength in her eyes, or perhaps the mystery that seemed to radiate from her, like a soft glow in the darkness, that stirred something within him? A hush settled over the bus as it resumed its journey. The engine's drone and the steady vibration of the tires on the asphalt became a metronome for the unfolding day. Elijah's mind raced with silent questions. Who was this woman who exuded both serenity and an inexplicable aura of hidden power? What secret lay behind those deep, thoughtful eyes? And most importantly, what would happen if that secret came to light? The early hours of the day carried with them an undercurrent of suspense. Each moment was tinged with the possibility of revelation, of a twist that could shatter the fragile calm of the morning. Elijah's attention, though primarily fixed on the road, was intermittently drawn to Aisha as she sat by the window. There was an elegance in her simplicity, a way in which she seemed both ordinary and extraordinary, a living contradiction that defied easy explanation. She occasionally adjusted the strap of her bag or traced a delicate pattern on the condensation that had formed on the glass, each gesture imbued with a quiet deliberation. Outside, the world was awakening fully. The streets became more crowded, the sounds grew louder, and the interplay of light and shadow danced across the faces of the commuters. In the midst of this urban symphony, small, almost imperceptible details began to hint at something larger. A whispered exchange between two passengers, a furtive glance cast in the direction of Aisha by a man whose features were obscured by a worn cap. These fleeting moments carried the weight of secrets waiting to be uncovered. Elijah's own inner turmoil simmered beneath his gruff exterior. His past had taught him to be wary of appearances, to question every smile and every gesture for hidden meaning. There was an irony in his own life. A man who had spent years enforcing the rules of the road, yet himself had broken rules in the pursuit of a truth too painful to confront. As he drove, his thoughts flitted to memories of betrayal and loss, of moments when the harsh reality of life had left him speechless and vulnerable. Now, confronted with the enigmatic presence of Aisha, He felt that same sensation creeping up on him, a mix of foreboding and reluctant fascination. In a quiet moment, as the bus slowed to pick up another passenger at a crowded stop, Elijah's voice broke the prevailing silence. "Step on in," he called out, his tone gruff yet not unkind. The new arrival, a middle-aged man with a hesitant smile, nodded in gratitude and took a seat beside Mr. Thompson. But even as the newcomer settled, Elijah's eyes remained fixed on Aisha. There was something in the way she carried herself, an assurance that spoke of deep-seated wisdom and quiet strength. It was as if she knew that life, with all its unpredictable twists, had a plan far beyond the mundane routines of a morning bus ride. The gentle hum of conversation resumed among the passengers. Mr. Thompson began a soft reminiscence about the city's past, his voice weaving tales of long-forgotten neighborhoods and the vibrant tapestry of lives that had once defined them. Lila, half listening, interjected with a youthful laugh that momentarily brightened the mood. Yet, beneath the surface of these casual exchanges lay unspoken truths and hidden stories. Aisha's secret, a burden that had shaped her life in ways no one could yet understand, pulsed quietly in the background. It was a secret that held the promise of unimaginable fortune, a billion-dollar revelation that had the potential to turn her world upside down, and perhaps even change the lives of those around her. As the bus wound its way through the labyrinthine streets, the narrative of the morning deepened. Elijah found himself caught between duty and curiosity, the steady rhythm of the city echoing the beat of his own conflicted heart. Every so often, he would steal a glance at Aisha, noting how the light played upon her features, softening the lines of worry that occasionally marred her otherwise composed expression. There was an air of resignation about her, a quiet acceptance of the world's harsh realities, yet also a fierce determination that belied any hint of defeat. In that brief silence, the bus became a microcosm of life itself, a place where paths crossed, secrets simmered, and destinies awaited the moment of revelation. Elijah's thoughts turned once more to his own journey, a long road paved with difficult choices and lost chances. He recalled how, in his youth, he had dreamed of a life filled with respect and understanding, only to be met with harsh realities that hardened his spirit. Now, with every mile that passed beneath the wheels, he wondered if fate had conspired to offer him one more chance at redemption, one more moment to confront the truth that had eluded him for so long. The cityscape outside shifted as the bus approached a more industrial district, where warehouses and abandoned storefronts spoke of forgotten ambitions. Here, the air carried a tang of metal and oil, and the pavement was scarred by time and neglect. Even in this stark environment, the beauty of the ordinary was undeniable. Aisha's eyes, reflecting the dim light of the setting sun that began to seep through the clouds, held a quiet intensity. She seemed to be at peace with the world's imperfections, as if each scar on the urban landscape was a testament to resilience and survival. As the bus continued its slow journey, subtle hints of impending conflict began to emerge. A hushed conversation between two passengers, a quick exchange of knowing looks and softly spoken words, suggested that not everyone on board was as they appeared. The atmosphere grew charged with an almost imperceptible tension, a delicate balance between routine and the extraordinary. Elijah's grip on the wheel tightened imperceptibly as he sensed that the day was about to reveal more than just the ordinary rhythm of city life. In that moment, the delicate interplay of past regrets, unspoken ambitions, and the promise of hidden fortunes converged in the quiet heart of the bus. Aisha, with her enigmatic secret, had unknowingly set in motion a chain of events that would soon shake the very foundation of everyone's lives. The glances exchanged among the passengers, the fleeting moments of recognition and suspicion, all hinted at an imminent twist that none could foresee. Elijah's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sharp sound, a screech of brakes as the bus approached a red light at a busy junction. In the brief pause, every detail seems magnified. The soft murmur of anxious voices, the gentle rustling of newspapers in someone's hands, and the steady, rhythmic ticking of an old clock somewhere in the background. In that suspended moment, time itself felt as though it were holding its breath, waiting for the next act of the unfolding drama. For Elijah, That pause was a crucible of emotion. He recalled a moment from long ago when a single revelation had shattered his world, a moment when trust was betrayed and the cost of ignorance became painfully clear. Now, as he looked out the window, he couldn't help but wonder if today would be that moment for him again. The memories mingled with the present, and in the interplay of light and shadow on the city's face, a silent question emerged. What if the secret that Aisha carried was not merely a fortune in numbers, but a key to redeeming or condemning the lives of all who came into contact with it? In the soft hum of the engine and the murmurs of the passengers, the stage was quietly set. Aisha's presence was a beacon of quiet defiance amid a sea of routine, and Elijah's internal struggle was a mirror to the conflicts that lay hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. The morning had blossomed into a tapestry of emotions and secrets, each thread interwoven with the promise of twists yet to come. As the bus rolled onward, its journey marked by the steady cadence of city life, the first act of a much larger narrative unfurled. In the interplay of past and present, of dreams and disappointments, each passenger on board became an unwitting participant in a story that was destined to challenge perceptions and shatter the illusions of normalcy. The secrets that each person harbored, the quiet regrets of Elijah, the mysterious fortune of Aisha, and the subtle, unspoken connections among the others, formed the foundation of a narrative that was as fragile as it was powerful. In the soft light of the morning, as the bus continued its slow journey through the awakening city, a palpable sense of destiny began to take hold. The ordinary was on the cusp of the extraordinary, and every heartbeat, every shared glance, carried the weight of a truth waiting to be revealed. And though none of the passengers could yet foresee the storm that would soon descend upon them, each was silently aware that nothing in life remained unchanged for long. The day held secrets, and in those secrets lay the power to transform lives in ways that would leave everyone, especially Elijah, utterly speechless. The journey was far from over, and as the bus wound its way through streets that echoed with both the promise and the peril of urban life, one thing was certain: the moment when hidden truths would come to light was drawing ever closer. The air grew heavier with anticipation, each moment a prelude to revelations that would test the bonds of trust and redefine the meaning of loyalty. In the quiet determination of Aisha, in the guarded eyes of Elijah, and in the subtle exchanges of those around them, the stage was set for a tale of twists and betrayals that would leave an indelible mark on every heart aboard. And so, in the soft murmur of the city and the quiet cadence of the bus's journey, the first act of a story steeped in mystery and emotional turmoil reached its subtle, suspenseful close, a beginning filled with promise and an undercurrent of secrets that would soon shake the very foundations of the lives intertwined on that fateful morning. The day deepened into a restless afternoon as the bus continued its steady journey through winding city streets and shadowed alleys. The urban landscape shifted from the bright optimism of early morning to an undercurrent of secrets and subtle tension. The once familiar route now seemed a maze of hidden stories, and every bump on the road echoed like the heartbeat of a city concealing too many truths. Elijah's eyes, once calm and routine, now darted around with a growing sense of unease. The quiet determination that had characterized his work was slowly being eroded by a mix of suspicion and unspoken memories. Each face on the bus, from the kindly wrinkles of Mr. Thompson to the distracted gaze of Lila, held a hidden story that Elijah was all too aware might be laced with betrayal. And then there was Aisha. Her calm exterior belied a storm of secrets that, as he suspected, could shatter the fragile trust among them all. It began with a subtle shift in the atmosphere. As the bus rolled past a row of dilapidated storefronts, a soft murmur rippled through the compartment. Two passengers exchanged furtive glances, as if sharing a silent warning. A hushed conversation broke out in a corner, a low, almost conspiratorial tone that made Elijah's pulse quicken. He strained to catch snippets of the dialogue, and what he heard sent a chill down his spine. Words like investment, transfer, and confidential floated through the air, suggesting that the everyday passengers might be entwined in something far more complex than mere daily commutes. Aisha, who had sat quietly by the window, suddenly became the focus of these murmurs. Her deep, reflective eyes scanned the passing scenery, yet there was a fleeting moment when they flickered with anxiety, a brief flash of concern that Elijah caught before it disappeared behind her calm mask. In that moment, the air seemed to grow heavier, as if the very bus were aware that nothing was as it seemed. As the bus curved around a tight bend, a new figure boarded, a lean man with dark, searching eyes who took a seat, just a few rows behind Aisha. His presence was unsettling. His gaze, sharp and calculating, seemed to linger on Aisha with an intensity that bordered on predatory. Elijah's mind churned with suspicion. Who was this man? And why did his arrival coincide with the strange whispers among the other passengers? The atmosphere in the bus grew charged with unspoken tension, every heartbeat a silent drum in the symphony of secrets. Inside, Mr. Thompson leaned toward Lila and whispered, "There's more to today than just the usual routine." His voice, though soft, carried the weight of years spent witnessing the undercurrents of life on these streets. Lila's eyes, wide with curiosity, darted between the new arrival and Aisha as if trying to piece together an invisible puzzle. The questions in the air were unspoken yet palpable. What was hidden beneath Aisha's unassuming exterior? And why did it seem as if the very air was pregnant with deceit? Meanwhile, Elijah's internal struggle grew with every mile. He recalled fragments of a past he had long tried to bury, a time when secrets cost dearly and betrayals had torn apart the fragile fabric of trust he once cherished. Every bump on the road, every unexpected swerve, seemed to echo those memories. His knuckles tightened around the steering wheel, and a low, almost imperceptible rumble of anger began to build within him. "What are you hiding?" he silently demanded, his thoughts circling around the enigma of Aisha's presence and the sudden appearance of that mysterious man. As the bus passed through an industrial district with its rusted factories and abandoned warehouses, the external world mirrored the internal chaos. The scent of burning oil and metal mingled with the faint aroma of wet concrete, creating a heady mix that both repelled and mesmerized. In the gloom of a narrow street, the city's harsher realities came into sharp focus, and Elijah's heart pounded faster. Every shadow seemed to harbor its own secret. Every distant sound whispered of past transgressions. Aisha, seated by the window, remained an island of calm amid the rising storm. Yet, even her composed demeanor could not fully mask the tension in her eyes. At one point, she reached into her worn leather bag and pulled out a slim envelope, its surface marked by a discreet emblem. For a brief second, the envelope's presence seemed to illuminate the space between suspicion and revelation. Elijah's gaze inadvertently fell upon it through the reflection in the window, a glimpse of something that should not be there. His thoughts raced. Had she been involved in deals or transactions that could explain the hushed murmurs? Was that envelope the key to a secret worth billions? The bus rumbled onward as the day began to crack under the pressure of mounting tension. Conversations on board grew subdued, replaced by heavy silences punctuated by the occasional sharp intake of breath. Elijah's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, his inner monologue a mixture of anger, curiosity, and a deep-seated fear of repeating past mistakes. Imagine if someone you trusted held the power to destroy lives with just a secret, he thought bitterly, and indeed the thought gnawed at him as he recalled the bitter taste of betrayal in his own life. As if on cue, the mysterious man who had boarded earlier shifted in his seat and pulled out a small, sleek mobile device. His eyes locked with Aisha's for a fraction of a second, a silent exchange that sent a shockwave through the bus. It was a look that held promises of power, danger, and unspoken complicity. Aisha's face hardened imperceptibly, and for the first time, a spark of defiance glimmered in her eyes. In that charged moment, the delicate balance of trust was shattered, replaced by an explosive mix of suspicion and concealed agendas. Lila, noticing the tension, broke the silence with a nervous question. "Do you think it's safe to ride with all these strangers?" Her voice trembled as she glanced around, as if the bus itself might reveal more than it intended. Mr. Thompson responded in his gentle, measured tone. In this world, safety is an illusion. We all carry secrets, some heavier than others. His words, though meant to comfort, only deepened the sense of foreboding that clung to the bus like a thick fog. The bus soon slowed near a busy interchange, and passengers began to stir as they prepared to disembark for various errands. Elijah's attention, however, remained fixed on the simmering drama unfolding around Aisha. His inner conflict was reaching a boiling point, a pressure building like water about to burst from a dam. Every detail, the slight tremor in Aisha's hand as she adjusted her bag, the furtive glances between the mysterious man and a couple of other passengers seemed to scream of hidden treachery. At a crowded stop, as people poured onto the pavement, an abrupt commotion broke the fragile calm. The mysterious man stood abruptly and murmured something into his phone, a terse conversation that caught the attention of several passengers. His tone was urgent, and his eyes darted around as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. The murmurs among the crowd grew louder, laced with alarm and disbelief. In that moment, Elijah's suspicions morphed into a visceral certainty. There was a covert network at play, and Aisha was its linchpin. Elijah's grip on the steering wheel tightened as he navigated through the chaos outside. His mind raced, teetering on the edge of past regrets and a burning need for retribution. In a surge of emotion, he recalled that long-buried memory, a time when he had been deceived by someone he had trusted implicitly. The memory was a blade slicing through his resolve, igniting a raw anger that threatened to consume him. "I won't let secrets destroy lives again," he vowed silently, feeling that same old fury rise within him. Back on board, Aisha seemed to sense the shift in energy. Her eyes, now steeled with determination, flickered briefly with an emotion that was neither fear nor resignation, but a fierce defiance. She clutched the envelope tightly, as if it were both her shield and her burden. In a hushed tone, barely audible over the ambient noise, she murmured to herself, "This secret, it is both a curse and a salvation. I must see it through, no matter the cost." The bus jerked into motion once again, leaving behind the clamor of the stop and plunging back into the uncertain rhythm of the city. As the vehicle advanced, Elijah's thoughts became a tempest of conflicting emotions. His duty as a bus driver collided with the raw, personal emotions stirred by the day's events. Every turn of the wheel was accompanied by an internal dialogue. How can one's secret hold so much power? And what if its revelation shatters more than just trust? The question echoed in his mind like a refrain in a bitter ballad. As the minutes dragged on, the tension on the bus became almost tangible. The mysterious man returned to his seat, his device now silent, but his eyes continued to cast furtive glances in Aisha's direction. The air seemed to vibrate with the energy of imminent revelation, and the passengers, though outwardly engaged in their own quiet activities, were united in a shared unspoken anxiety. It was as if the bus itself was a vessel hurtling toward an inevitable collision of fates. In one particularly charged moment, as the bus navigated a narrow, winding street lined with flickering neon signs and shuttered storefronts, Lila's phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at the screen, her face draining of color as she read an urgent message. "I think something's wrong," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Her eyes darted between the message and Aisha, and for a fleeting second, it seemed as though the digital message was a harbinger of the storm brewing inside the bus. The interactive thought hovered in the air. What would you do if you suddenly realized that those around you were hiding truths that could upend your world? It was at that moment that the subtle cues of betrayal crystallized. Aisha's calm facade began to crumble as her eyes widened in realization, and a tremor of fear broke through her otherwise composed exterior. The envelope in her hand, once a symbol of quiet determination, now appeared as a ticking time bomb, a secret that could unravel the lives of everyone on board. Her breath came in short, rapid bursts as she clutched the envelope closer, as though trying to hold back the torrent of revelations it threatened to unleash. Elijah, who had been silently wrestling with his own demons, could no longer contain the storm raging inside him. The memories of past betrayals, of promises broken and trust shattered, coalesced into a single burning moment of decision. His eyes, now burning with a mix of fury and sorrow, shifted from a road to the figure of Aisha. The internal conflict that had haunted him for years now found a voice in the roaring silence of the bus's cabin. Without warning, as the bus came to a halt at another stop, Elijah's voice broke through the charged atmosphere. "Enough!" he barked, his tone harsh and laden with anger. The sudden outburst startled everyone. Passengers exchanged nervous glances, and even Mr. Thompson's gentle eyes widened in disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as Elijah's words reverberated through the cramped space. Aisha's head snapped up, her eyes meeting him in a moment of stark confrontation. There was a flash of defiance in her gaze, mixed with something else: pain, regret, and an almost desperate resolve. "Elijah," she murmured, her voice trembling yet determined, "you don't understand." But he was beyond reason at that moment. The fire of betrayal and old wounds blazed in his eyes, and he advanced slightly within the narrow confines of the bus cabin. The mysterious man shifted again, his face now obscured by shadows, while Mr. Thompson and Lila instinctively leaned back, sensing that the situation was spiraling into something far more dangerous than a simple disagreement. Elijah's voice rose even further, echoing off the metal walls. "What secret could be so important that you hide it from all of us? What promise have you broken that deserves such silence?" His words were not merely accusations. They were the unburdening of years of suppressed grief and rage. In that heated moment, Aisha's carefully guarded secret seemed to pulsate between them like a living entity. Her hand trembled as she slowly pulled the envelope from her bag, holding it out in a gesture that was part surrender, part challenge. The envelope, its surface marked with the discreet emblem that hinted at vast fortunes and even darker dealings, glinted in the dim light. For a heartbeat, the world around them fell away. The only truth was that this small, unassuming piece of paper held the key to a billion-dollar secret, a secret that had the power to transform lives or destroy them utterly. A hush fell over the bus. Even the relentless hum of the engine seemed to quiet as all eyes fixed on the two figures locked in a battle of wills. Elijah's voice, now a low, seething growl, cut through the silence. "Tell me, Aisha, what is it that you've been hiding? Who do you really serve?" His words were laced with both accusation and a desperate need to understand, to reconcile the present with the ghosts of his past. Aisha's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she met his gaze, her voice soft yet unwavering. "I have carried this burden for so long," she said, the words heavy with sorrow and resolve. "This secret, it is my inheritance, my curse, and my hope. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I only hoped that one day I could use it to change everything for the better." Her admission was a fragile bridge between two worlds, a world of hidden power and a world of raw, exposed emotions. In that fragile pause, the tension on the bus reached a tipping point. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat, his voice trembling as he broke the silence. "Sometimes the cost of truth is higher than we can bear." His words, imbued with years of wisdom and regret, lingered in the air, inviting each passenger to question their own hidden truths. Lila, still clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline to a simpler reality, looked around in disbelief. What would you do if you discovered that someone you trusted had a secret that could destroy lives? She thought aloud, her question hanging in the air like a challenge to the silent audience within the bus. The mysterious man remained silent, his face a mask of conflicted loyalty and hidden agendas. His earlier actions, now reinterpreted in the harsh light of confrontation, revealed that he was not merely an observer, but an active participant in a web of deceit that extended far beyond the confines of the bus. His eyes, dark and inscrutable, shifted between Aisha and Elijah as if weighing the consequences of the moment. Elijah's anger was slowly giving way to a bitter sadness. The words he had shouted, meant to uncover the truth, now felt like an admission of his own failures, failures to protect those he cared about, failures to trust even when it mattered most. I once believed that truth could set us free, he whispered hoarsely, almost to himself. But now it feels like every secret is a chain that binds us to our past mistakes. Aisha's grip on the envelope tightened as she stepped closer to him. I never chose this path, she said softly, her voice trembling with the weight of her own pain. But sometimes circumstances force us to make decisions that we can't undo. I wish I could explain everything, but some things are meant to be discovered in time. Her words were a plea for understanding, a silent hope that, in the unraveling of secrets, there might be redemption for them all. The bus rocked gently as it resumed motion. The brief halt at the stop, now a distant memory, overshadowed by the charged confrontation. Outside, the city continued its relentless march, oblivious to the drama unfolding within the confined space of the vehicle. Yet, inside, every passenger felt the weight of the moment, a collective sense of impending change, as if the very fabric of their lives was about to be torn apart by the revelations that loomed on the horizon. Elijah's eyes flickered with a storm of emotions, anger, sorrow, regret, and a stubborn determination that bordered on desperation. If you have nothing to hide, then let the truth shine, he challenged, his voice steadying as he sought to reclaim a semblance of control. The silence that followed was thick, filled with the unspoken promise of more twists to come. For several agonizing minutes, no one spoke. The only sound was the soft, rhythmic thumping of the tires on the asphalt, a metronome counting down the seconds until the next inevitable twist. The mysterious man's gaze shifted downward as if gathering his courage, and, in a voice barely above a whisper, he finally said, "There are forces at work that none of us can control. Some secrets are protected for a reason, and some truths, they change everything." His words, laced with resignation, hinted at betrayals that extended far beyond the immediate confrontation. Aisha's eyes met his, and in that moment, an unspoken alliance was forged, a recognition that they were both trapped in a labyrinth of their own making, bound by secrets that threatened to consume them. "I did what I had to do," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of defiance and sorrow. "I trusted people who promised me protection, who assured me that the secret would remain safe. But trust is a fragile thing, easily broken by greed and ambition." Elijah's face hardened as he processed her words, the raw emotion in his voice softening into a pained murmur. "Your secret, it's more than just money. It's power to change lives for better or worse. And if you're not careful, it will destroy everyone involved." His warning hung in the air, a stark reminder of the cost of hidden truths. Outside, the late afternoon sun struggled to pierce the gathering clouds, casting long, eerie shadows over the city's uneven pavement. The bus wound its way through streets where every corner held memories of past glories and recent failures. In this shifting light, the faces of the passengers became masks of conflicted emotion, each one silently questioning the choices that had led them to this crossroads. The conversation, punctuated by bitter admissions and desperate defenses, began to take on an almost hypnotic cadence. Every word, every pause, built on the tension like layers of sediment, each one threatening to collapse under the pressure of its own weight. What would you do if you found out that the person you trusted most was hiding something so dangerous? The thought echoed in the minds of those listening, a question that pierced the veneer of everyday life. As the bus veered onto a quieter road, far from the urban chaos, the atmosphere inside grew even more intense. Elijah's internal struggle reached a crescendo. The memories of betrayal from his own past mingled with the palpable tension of the present. In his heart, he knew that the revelations of today would not simply fade into the background. They would come to define the lives of everyone on board. Aisha's eyes, glistening with the unshed tears of remorse and determination, seemed to search for an escape in the dim light. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered, her voice barely audible, as if afraid to disturb the delicate balance of emotions. only wanted to protect what was mine, to secure a future where I wasn't constantly running from my past. Her words, heavy with regret, were a stark contrast to the fierce defiance that had marked her earlier. Now, vulnerability crept into her tone, a silent admission that even the strongest among us are not immune to the weight of our choices. The mysterious man, still shrouded in his own ambiguity, finally spoke up again, his voice low and measured. Sometimes the price of survival is the loss of everything we hold dear, he said, his words resonating with a weary wisdom. And in that loss, we find that our true selves are nothing more than echoes of past mistakes. His statement, laden with a somber truth, caused a ripple of introspection among the passengers, inviting them to question the very nature of trust and loyalty. Elijah's anger, once a raging inferno, now simmered into a heavy, almost mournful regret. "I don't know if I can ever trust again," he admitted, his voice cracking with the weight of his own confession. "Every secret I uncover feels like a piece of my soul being torn away, leaving me with nothing but the bitter taste of betrayal." His admission, raw and unfiltered, laid bare the deep scars of a lifetime of disappointments. For a long, silent moment, the bus journeyed on as if suspended in time. The passengers were caught in a limbo of thought and emotion, each one reflecting on the fragile nature of truth. The city outside, with its chaotic blend of light and shadow, seemed to echo the internal battles raging within the bus. It was a moving canvas of human frailty and strength. A reminder that sometimes the most dangerous secrets are the ones we keep hidden even from ourselves. The tension finally gave way to a series of hushed exchanges. Lila, still visibly shaken, spoke up with a tentative voice. "Do you think we can ever really know someone? Or are we all just playing parts in a story that someone else wrote?" Her question, though simple in its delivery, struck a chord with everyone on board. It was an invitation to reflect on the very essence of trust, a trust that had been so brutally undermined by the day's revelations. Aisha, gathering the fragments of her resolve, offered a quiet, heartfelt response. "I believe that sometimes we are forced to live with the consequences of our choices," she said softly. "Even if those choices come with unbearable secrets, they define who we are and what we might become." Her words, both an apology and an explanation, hung in the air, adding yet another layer of complexity to the unfolding drama. The bus turned into a bridge that spanned a murky river, the water below reflecting a distorted mosaic of city lights. In that reflective surface, Elijah caught a glimpse of his own face, etched with lines of regret and hardened by years of conflict. It was a moment of stark self-realization, that the truth he sought in others might also be the truth he had long denied within himself. His eyes, heavy with the weight of unspoken pain, mirrored the tumult of the past and the uncertainty of the future. As the bus neared a final stop for the day, a deserted terminal on the edge of the city, the atmosphere inside was charged with the promise of an impending climax. The murmurs of the passengers quieted, replaced by an expectant silence that spoke of battles yet to be fought. Elijah's thoughts churned with the inevitability of confrontation. The secret envelope in Aisha's hand was no longer just a burden, it was the catalyst for change, a spark that threatened to ignite a conflagration of emotions and hidden truths. In that final stretch of the journey, every eye on the bus seemed to be waiting for the moment when the tangled threads of secrets and lies would finally unravel. The mysterious man sat silently, his gaze distant yet alert, as if he were preparing to step out of the shadows and into the light of accountability. Mr. Thompson, whose gentle wisdom had so far offered quiet solace, now looked on with a somber understanding that the price of truth was never light. And Lila, whose youthful optimism had been challenged by the harsh realities of life, clutched her phone as if it were a lifeline to a world that still promised clarity amidst the chaos. Elijah, his voice now a soft blend of sorrow and determination, finally broke the silence. "Tomorrow, everything will change," he murmured, as if speaking to a future that was as uncertain as it was inevitable. His words carried the weight of finality, a promise that the secrets held within that envelope would no longer remain hidden. The question lingered, echoing in the minds of everyone on board. What would become of the lives entangled in a secret so powerful it could shatter the bonds of trust forever? The bridge, bathed in the pale glow of twilight, became a symbolic threshold between the known and the unknown, between a life lived in quiet routine and one about to be transformed by revelations that no one could have foreseen. In that suspended moment, as the bus prepared to pull into the terminal, the journey of each passenger was poised on the edge of an abyss where betrayal and redemption danced a dangerous waltz. And so, as the bus finally came to a halt at the terminal, the rising tide of emotions and secrets that had built throughout the day reached its peak. The door opened, and one by one, the passengers disembarked into a night that promised both uncertainty and possibility. Elijah lingered for a moment, his eyes fixed on the darkened envelope clutched in Aisha's hand. In that silent exchange, a final unspoken challenge passed between them, a challenge to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As the night swallowed the bus and its fleeting occupants, the city beyond its doors hummed with the promise of change. The secrets that had long been hidden were now on the verge of bursting forth, ready to reshape lives in ways that none of them could imagine. And in that charged darkness, as the stars emerged one by one, the story of betrayal, redemption, and the heavy cost of truth was only just beginning to unfold. What would you do if you were caught between the desire to protect a secret and the need to reveal a truth that could break the bonds of trust? The question lingered in the cool night air, a challenge to every soul who had ever struggled with the weight of their own hidden past. In the quiet hours that followed, as the terminal emptied and the night deepened, each character was left alone with their thoughts. Elijah's mind churned with conflicting emotions, a fierce determination to unearth the full extent of Aisha's secret, tempered by the lingering pain of past betrayals. Aisha, her heart heavy yet resolute, wondered if the cost of honesty might ultimately set her free, even if it meant shattering the lives of those around her. And the mysterious man, ever watchful, disappeared into the urban night, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. The night was long and full of unspoken promises. In that silent, contemplative darkness, the stage was set for the next act. A moment when every carefully hidden secret would be forced into the light, and the price of betrayal would be measured in the currency of human hearts. The bus ride, once a simple journey through the city, had become a microcosm of life's most profound and painful truths, that every secret has its price, and every revelation carries the potential to alter destinies forever. With the terminal behind them and the uncertain future ahead, the characters stepped into a world where loyalty and deception coexisted in a delicate balance. The echoes of their conversation, of confessions and unspoken apologies, would resonate in the days to come, and as the night gave way to the pale light of dawn, each of them would have to decide whether the truth was a burden too heavy to bear, or a weapon capable of forging a new path through the darkness. In that charged silence, as the city began to stir with the first hints of a new day, the rising action of this tumultuous tale marched inexorably onward. The secret that had been guarded so fiercely was now the spark that would ignite the coming storm. And in the minds of every passenger, from the weathered eyes of Elijah to the soulful depths of Aisha's, there lay an unspoken question. When the truth finally emerges, who will be left standing in its harsh light, and who will be forever lost in the shadows of betrayal? The journey had grown far more than a simple bus ride. It had become a test of trust, a battleground for hidden agendas, and a stage for the raw, unfiltered emotions that define the human spirit. Each twist, each whispered confession, and each moment of silence was a step toward an inevitable collision, a collision that would force every character to confront not only the secret that had brought them together, but also the darker parts of themselves they had long tried to hide. And so, with the promise of a new day dawning and the echoes of the past mingling with the uncertainty of the future, the bus driver's earlier outburst and the quiet defiance in Aisha's eyes became the prelude to an even more explosive chapter, one where every hidden truth would demand its due, and where the price of betrayal would finally be paid in full. As the early light of dawn crept over the horizon, each soul stepped into the unfolding narrative with a mix of hope and trepidation. The rising action had reached its zenith, and every heartbeat echoed with the tension of secrets about to be revealed. In that fragile moment between night and day, the world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable storm that would change everything forever. And with that, the stage was set for the coming clash of wills, a final confrontation that would decide whether the bonds of trust could be mended, or whether the bitter sting of betrayal would leave scars too deep to ever heal. The question remained: when the truth is laid bare, can the wounds of the past ever be healed, or are we doomed to be prisoners of our own secrets? The answer lay somewhere in the uncertain light of the new day, a day that promised both redemption and ruin in equal measure. The cool night air enveloped the bus terminal as passengers slowly dispersed onto the darkened pavement. The neon sign above flickered uncertainty, as if hesitant to announce the secrets it witnessed each night. Elijah stood on the platform, his eyes fixed on Aisha, who remained seated on a bench under a lone street lamp. The quiet intensity that had built throughout the day now reached its peak in this silent, charged moment. Every step, every breath, seemed laden with the weight of truths that had been kept hidden for too long. Aisha's hand still trembled as she clutched the envelope, a simple, unadorned piece of paper that, unbeknownst to most, held a billion-dollar secret. The secret was not merely a fortune, it was a legacy burdened with promises and betrayals, a secret that had shaped her life in ways even she struggled to understand. Tonight, with the eyes of the world reduced to a few wandering souls on the quiet street, that secret was about to be laid bare. Elijah stepped forward, his gait heavy with both anger and sorrow. "Aisha," he called softly at first, then louder as his inner conflict surged. "I need to know the truth. For all our sakes, tell us what you're hiding." His voice was raw, a mixture of grief from past betrayals and a desperate longing to make sense of the chaos that had consumed his life these last hours. Aisha's dark eyes, so often a window to a world of quiet determination, now shimmered with tears. Slowly, she rose from the bench, her movements measured as though each step carried the burden of years. "Elijah," she began, her voice trembling yet determined, "I have carried this secret for so long. It isn't just money or power, it is a responsibility. A promise I made to someone I once loved and lost." Her words hung in the air, mingling with the distant sounds of the sleeping city. Behind her, the mysterious man stepped from the shadows. His face, partly hidden by a low cap and the deep lines of experience, watched silently. He was the keeper of more than just secrets. He was the embodiment of choices made in the darkness of betrayal. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was filled with unspoken accusations, memories of pain, and the heavy thud of hearts that had been scarred by deception. Mr. Thompson, who had lingered near the terminal trying to make sense of the day's events, cleared his throat softly. "Sometimes," he said in his gentle, measured tone, "the truth can hurt more than lies, but it is the only way to heal." His words, though spoken quietly, resonated in the stillness of the night. Elijah's eyes flickered with conflicting emotions, anger, hurt, and an unexpected glimmer of compassion. "I've seen what secrets can do," he murmured. "They tear families apart, shatter trust, and leave us with nothing but regret." His gaze dropped to the envelope in Aisha's hand. "Is that why you've kept it hidden? To protect someone?" he asked, voice rising slightly as old wounds flared up. Aisha paused, her eyes darting to the mysterious man before returning to Elijah. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," she whispered. "That envelope is the key to a legacy my father left me, a fortune that was meant to save lives, not ruin them. But it came with strings attached. I was forced into a world where power was the only currency, and betrayal was the price for survival." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "My father believed that with that money, I could expose the corruption that runs deep in the corridors of power. But those who sought to keep that corruption hidden did not let him or me go unchallenged. The mysterious man finally spoke, his voice low and steady. "I tried to warn you, Aisha," he said, stepping closer. "I knew the day would come when your secret would stir the forces that thrive on silence. They want to keep the truth locked away. I have been trying to protect you, even if it meant playing both sides." His admission carried a weight that chilled the air further. Elijah's eyes narrowed as he absorbed the man's words. "Protect you," he echoed bitterly. "By lying? By making deals behind closed doors? Tell me. Then, who do you serve? Who are you really working for?" His words were laced with a deep-seated distrust born from years of witnessing betrayal in the darkest corners of his own past. The stranger's gaze dropped momentarily, as if wrestling with the enormity of his own guilt. "I serve no one but the truth," he replied, though his tone held the sadness of many regrets. "I have only ever wished to see justice done. But sometimes the lines between right and wrong blur in the shadows of our choices." His eyes met Elijah's, pleading for understanding, for forgiveness that was hard-earned. Aisha stepped between them, her posture erect and defiant, though her voice softened. "Both of you have your reasons," she said, addressing them with a weary calm. "Elijah, your anger is born of loss, and I understand that. But my father's legacy was not meant to be hidden. It was meant to be a beacon, a chance to change the world. Yet, every time I have tried to use it for good, forces beyond our control have forced me back into silence." Her voice broke slightly as she continued, "I have been betrayed by those I trusted most, and that betrayal has scarred me deeply." Elijah's features softened, his hardened gaze wavering as he remembered his own life marred by treachery. "I know what it is to be hurt by secrets," he confessed quietly, his voice laden with personal sorrow. "I have been left speechless more times than I can count by those who swore loyalty and then turned their backs when I needed them the most." His eyes shone with tears he had long kept hidden. "But perhaps maybe it is time to confront these ghosts, to let the truth, however painful, set us free." At that moment, the distant sound of sirens cut through the quiet, and headlights illuminated the dark street. A black SUV pulled up at the terminal, its engine purring like a predator in the night. Shadows shifted as a group of men in dark suits stepped out, their eyes cold and determined. They had been searching for Aisha. Their arrival confirmed that powerful interests were closing in on the secret she had guarded so carefully. Aisha's heart pounded fiercely as she clutched the envelope even tighter. "They've come for me," she whispered, fear mingling with defiance in her tone. The stranger moved instinctively, positioning himself between Aisha and the approaching threat. "I warned you," he said quietly, though the regret in his voice was palpable. "They will stop at nothing to keep their world intact. And if you let the truth out, it might destroy everything or change it forever." Elijah squared his shoulders and took a protective step toward Aisha. "We cannot let them silence the truth," he declared firmly. "I have spent my life driving these streets, witnessing the pain of broken trust. Tonight, I choose to stand for something better. We must face them, face the corruption head-on." His voice carried an uncharacteristic steadiness, a determination forged in the fires of his own past disappointments. The men in dark suits advanced quickly, their faces masked with determination and the cold professionalism of those accustomed to enforcing orders from above. One of them, a tall man with a steely gaze, spoke in a clipped tone. "Aisha, we have orders. Surrender the asset and come with us." His words were void of malice, yet they carried an unmistakable threat. Aisha's eyes blazed with a mix of anger and desperation. "This asset," she said, lifting the envelope slightly, "is not just a piece of paper. It is my father's dream, my burden, and my hope for a better world." Her voice rose in defiance as she continued, "I will not give in to your threats. You may take me, but you will never silence the truth." A tense standoff ensued, the air thick with the promise of violence. Elijah moved swiftly, placing himself between Aisha and the armed men. "I will not let you take her," he said, his voice low and resolute. "Not tonight." The confrontation escalated in mere moments. The tall man's hand hovered near his holster as he assessed Elijah's challenge, while the stranger's eyes darted between Aisha and the approaching figures. For a breathless minute, time seemed to slow as the clash between order and rebellion played out under the indifferent gaze of the streetlights. Then, in a sudden burst of action, a scuffle broke out. One of the suited men lunged forward, and in the ensuing chaos, a sharp sound, a crack, rang out as a fist connected with a jaw. Elijah's years of pent-up rage exploded in that moment, fueled by the memories of every betrayal he had ever suffered. His voice boomed. "Enough! You will not take her without facing the truth." In the melee that followed, the stranger darted forward, his movements fluid as he tried to disarm one of the assailants. Aisha, trembling but resolute, clutched the envelope to her chest, her eyes wild as she witnessed the battle around her. Mr. Thompson and Lila, who had come too close to the unfolding confrontation, retreated to a safe distance, yet continued to watch, their hearts pounding in unison with the urgency of the moment. The clash was fierce but brief. Elijah's determination, honed over a lifetime of hardship, proved to be a powerful force. In the confusion, one of the assailants was subdued, and the remaining men hesitated, their coordinated advance faltering as they reconsidered their orders in the face of unexpected resistance. The tall man's voice wavered as he said, "This is not over. The higher powers will not allow this secret to be exposed." With that, the group retreated into the shadows of the night, leaving behind a silence that was as heavy as the secrets that had almost been lost. In the aftermath, the street was eerily quiet. The distant hum of the city resumed as if trying to reclaim its normalcy. Elijah, breathing heavily, turned to Aisha. "What now?" he asked softly, his voice still echoing with the adrenaline of the confrontation. Aisha lowered the envelope slowly, her eyes reflecting the pain of the night. "Now," she said, "we decide if this secret is a curse or a chance for redemption." The stranger, standing a few paces away, finally spoke with quiet authority. "The truth, once revealed, cannot be taken back, but it can free us if we choose to learn from it." His words, though simple, carried a weight of moral clarity. Aisha's secret is not just about money. It is a legacy of betrayal and hope intertwined. It has the power to either shatter lives or to mend them if used wisely. Elijah looked at Aisha, his hardened features softening with understanding. "I have lived my life on these streets, watching trust crumble like old paint. But perhaps tonight, in all this chaos, there is a chance to rebuild something real." His voice was low, imbued with the wisdom of a man who had seen too much, yet still believed in the possibility of change. Aisha's eyes met his, and in that shared moment of vulnerability, an unspoken agreement was forged between them, a commitment to confront the darkness together. "I want to use my father's legacy to expose the corruption that has ruined so many lives," she said, her voice steadier now. "But I need allies who believe in truth, even if it cuts deep." The stranger stepped forward once more. "We must work together. The forces behind this secret are powerful, and they will try everything to silence us. But if we stand united, if we allow our shared pain to transform into strength, we can change the course of history." His eyes swept over the few remaining witnesses, Mr. Thompson and Lila, whose faces showed a blend of fear and reluctant hope. In that moment, the night became a crucible of redemption. The pain of betrayal, the sting of past deceptions, and the weight of unspoken truths all converged into a single defining point. Elijah, Aisha, and the stranger formed an unlikely alliance, bound by a mutual recognition that truth was the only path to healing, even if it meant facing the darkest corners of their souls. The hours that followed were a whirlwind of covert meetings and hushed conversations under the veil of darkness. In a small, discreet apartment not far from the terminal, the trio gathered with Mr. Thompson and Lila. The room was dimly lit by a single lamp, and every face was etched with determination and a cautious hope. Here, they pored over old documents, financial records, and letters that revealed the intricate web of deceit that had allowed corruption to flourish unchecked. Aisha carefully unfolded her father's final letter, a testament to his unyielding belief that the money was meant for the betterment of society, not for the selfish gains of a few. As dawn began to break outside, casting a pale light over the city, the truth emerged in stark detail. The billion-dollar secret was not just an inheritance. It was evidence of a conspiracy that stretched from the highest echelons of corporate power to the dark corners of political influence. The money had been laundered through countless shell companies, its origins obscured by layers of deceit. Yet within the chaos of financial transactions lay a single undeniable truth. The funds were meant to rebuild communities, to create opportunities for those who had been left behind by a system built on greed and exploitation. Elijah's voice was soft but resolute as he addressed the group. This isn't just about money. It's about taking a stand. We have a chance to use this truth to hold those in power accountable, to give voice to the voiceless. His eyes, once filled with bitter anger, now shone with a cautious optimism. But we must be careful. The truth is a double-edged sword. It can liberate or it can destroy if wielded without wisdom. Aisha nodded slowly, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the sacrifices that would be required. I never wanted this burden, she said quietly, but if exposing the truth means we can mend what has been broken, then it is a risk I am willing to take. Her gaze swept over the assembled faces, each one representing a facet of the community that had suffered in silence. Let this be our promise, that no matter the cost, we will fight for justice, for redemption. The stranger, his earlier resolve tempered by the harsh lessons of life, added, "Remember, loyalty is not measured by blind obedience, but by the courage to do what is right even when it is difficult. We are all flawed, and our past mistakes haunt us. But today we have a chance to rise above them and create something better." His words resonated in the small room, a call to action that extended beyond personal grievances to a broader moral awakening. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the city in a soft, golden light, the group prepared to launch their plan. They would anonymously leak the information to trusted journalists and advocacy groups, ensuring that the conspiracy was exposed without compromising their identities. Each of them understood the risks. They knew that those who thrived in corruption would not take kindly to their revelations. Yet the determination in their eyes spoke of a shared commitment to truth, a belief that redemption was possible even in the darkest of times. Elijah stepped outside for a moment, the cool morning air a welcome relief after the night's turmoil. He looked up at the brightening sky and allowed himself a rare moment of introspection. Every day, he thought, we have a choice to let our past define us or to learn from it and forge a better future. His mind wandered back to all the moments of betrayal and pain that had once left him numb. Now, in the light of a new day, those scars took on a different meaning. They were reminders of lessons learned, of the cost of silence, and of the courage it took to seek the truth. Inside, Aisha gathered the documents one last time. Her hands, though still shaking slightly, moved with a determined precision. "This is my father's dream," she whispered, as if speaking to his memory. "And it is now our responsibility to make sure it isn't lost to greed and deception." She looked to Elijah, and in his eyes she saw not just a bus driver hardened by life's hardships, but a man ready to fight for a future where trust could be rebuilt from the ruins of betrayal. When the time came to send the information, the group worked quickly and carefully. In the digital glow of a single computer screen, files were encrypted and emails composed with painstaking detail. Every word, every figure, was a testament to the truth that had been hidden for far too long. Outside, the city hummed with the mundane rhythm of everyday life, oblivious to the seismic shift that was quietly taking place. At last, as the final keystroke was pressed, a sense of finality settled over them. The truth was now out there, released into the world like a spark in dry tinder. And though the immediate future was uncertain, one thing was clear. The actions of this small group would set in motion a chain of events that could not be undone. In the days that followed, whispers of the scandal spread like wildfire. Investigative reporters, emboldened by the revelations, began to piece together the puzzle of corruption. Public outrage grew, and soon, those who had once hidden behind layers of deceit found themselves forced to answer for their actions. Courtrooms filled with the clamor of justice being sought, and slowly, a measure of accountability was restored. Elijah, Aisha, and the others watched from the shadows as the world around them began to change. The struggle had been long and painful, but in that struggle lay the seeds of redemption. For Elijah, the journey had been one of confronting his own demons as much as it was about exposing the truth. For Aisha, it was the painful acceptance of a legacy that was both a curse and a hope. And for the stranger, it was the reaffirmation that even in a world rife with betrayal, loyalty could be found in unexpected places. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky blazed with hues of pink and gold, Elijah found himself alone on a quiet street. He paused at the edge of a small park where children's laughter mingled with the rustling of leaves. In that peaceful moment, he allowed himself to reflect on everything that had happened. Truth, he murmured to himself, is a heavy burden, but it is also a beacon that can guide us through the darkness. He looked up at the sky, the stars just beginning to twinkle, and silently vowed that he would never again let fear keep him from standing up for what was right. Later that night, as Aisha walked home along the empty street, she paused outside a modest building where she had once dreamed of building a better future for her community. The cool air caressed her face as she thought of her father's gentle smile and the promise he had once made, a promise that now lived on in her actions. "I will honor your memory," she whispered into the night, "by ensuring that no one's trust is betrayed in the name of greed." Her steps were steady, and though her heart was still heavy with the memories of loss, she felt a newfound strength rising within her. The events of that night and the tumultuous days that followed rippled out into the community, touching lives in ways both small and profound. Neighbors began to speak up about injustices they had long suffered in silence, and communities that had been torn apart by corruption slowly found ways to rebuild. In quiet gatherings at local community centers, people shared their stories of betrayal and resilience. They spoke of how secrets had once kept them apart, but now the truth was forging bonds of understanding and hope. In one such gathering, an elderly woman looked around at the faces of those who had come to reclaim their dignity. "We have all been hurt by secrets," she said softly, her voice carrying the wisdom of many years. "But now, as we stand together in the light of truth, we have a chance to heal." Her words, simple and heartfelt, resonated deeply with everyone present. It was a reminder that in the shared struggle for justice, every person, no matter how broken or battered, could find redemption. And so, as the final chapters of this turbulent journey were written in the hearts of those touched by its revelations, a reflective calm settled over the community. The story of betrayal and redemption was not one with a neat, tidy ending. Instead, it was a mosaic of lives forever changed by the courage to expose the truth. The bitter lessons of the past had given way to the tender hope of a future built on honesty and compassion. Before we leave you with this tale, take a moment to reflect. What would you do if you were caught between the desire to protect a secret and the need to reveal a truth that could break the bonds of trust? How far would you go to honor a legacy born out of betrayal, yet destined to heal wounds too long ignored? Share your thoughts, your own stories of redemption, or the moments when you chose to stand up for truth despite the cost. In our collective experience, there is strength, and in our shared vulnerabilities, there is hope. For Elijah, Aisha, and every soul touched by their journey, the night's tumult had given way to a gentle promise that even in a world where secrets can destroy, truth can also build bridges. The scars of betrayal remain, but they serve as constant reminders of the price of silence and the power of redemption. And as the city awakens each new day, may we all remember that the courage to face our hidden truths is the first step toward a better, more honest world. What would you have done in this moment of choice? Share your thoughts and let the conversation begin. If you found this story powerful, Make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Your support helps us bring more important stories to light.